I'm Keith Cox. I'm the Conference Treasurer, and for many, many years I have performed district financial training workshops on an annual basis and have received numbers of questions resulting from those workshops over the years, and have come to conclude that having a district financial workshop is not enough coverage for our churches and for finance committees and treasurers. So I thought perhaps a film to go over some of these very common topics would be helpful to you. Obviously, because it's a video, it's not going to be as in-depth as a typical district presentation would be. So this is going to be more of an introduction of topics. It's going to introduce you not only to the topics, but also the resources that you can access to get some of the answers to your questions that may come up, the more common questions. I want to say very clearly that it is not my attempt to disconnect from the church, but rather to give you better access to information. I still encourage you to call me or call Bruce Cooper or Karen Fullerton for any financial administrative questions that may arise, or you can email us. I also want to introduce you to our website again, which has a number of links to some very, very specific topics, again, and it's predicated on very common questions and common issues that come up. So we're going to go through this rather quickly. Again, introducing the topics, introducing the resources and the links to the website, and I encourage you to get in touch with us. One more thing, I have told the district superintendents over the years that if they are aware of a church that requires some assistance from us, we're happy to come out to the church and meet with the finance committee or the treasurer, but that would need to be based upon an invitation from the district superintendent. So I'm very willing to do that and would be happy to do so if this video leads to some additional discussion, additional needs. So let's go through it rather briefly. The first presentation is more general in nature. But I think it's got some topics that you'll find important and interesting. So let me get on with it. I have a package of material that I typically hand out at our district financial workshops. It's rather voluminous, and much of it is based on the information from our website, and in fact a lot of it is printed out right from the website, but it serves as kind of a handy resource. And what we're going to do is link this document on our website. It's not right now, but we're going to link it shortly so that once we go through these topics, if you want to be able to download it and print it for your reference, you're free to do so. And in the meantime, let me kind of go through what the basics of this presentation are going to include. Finance committee responsibilities. That's on pages 1 through 5 of this packet that I just showed you. The finance committee responsibilities are outlined in the Book of Discipline. Now, many of you may think the Book of Discipline is very, very specific about every finance issue that may come up, and it's not. It details what the specific responsibilities are, the members of the Finance Committee, how they are nominated and elected, what the responsibilities of the various members of the committee are. That is, again, on pages 1 through 5 of this packet. I've also taken not only what's in the Book of Discipline, but provided my own kind of bullet point interpretation of what's in the Book of Discipline, which is part of this same section. There's an internal control component of this package, pages 6 through 13, that goes into some policies and procedures, or recommended policies and procedures and recommended practices of how to ensure good internal control so that the assets of the church are safeguarded, so that the funds are accounted for properly, and so that the church members can get good comfort that the finances of the church are in good order. Now, there's a separate PowerPoint that we'll go through later that gets way more in-depth with internal control, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Reimbursable expenses, pages 14 through 22 of this particular section of this particular package. Reimbursable expenses is a topic that can cause consternation within a church. We talk about a number of things with respect to reimbursable expenses, including an accountable reimbursement plan and what that means versus a non-accountable plan and what that means. Accountable doesn't mean good, non-accountable doesn't mean bad, but it has tax ramifications and tax reporting ramifications. So be aware that that section has a number of items associated with this topic, along with the Q&A section. Another section in this package that I am particularly interested in, and I know many of you are as well, is apportionments. Not only the general topic, but how they are computed, what apportionments support, what kind of ministries and missions, in other words, how they're spent. And I would encourage you to be very comfortable with this topic. Again, it's pages 23 through 39, so it's a big section, but a good portion of this section is the interpretation of the budget and the apportionments and what they go for and how they're computed and so forth, so be aware of that. Now, there's a topic that generally people's eyes glaze over when I talk about this at our workshops is statistical reporting, year-end statistical reporting. And we're right there at the point of a deadline for filing our statistical reports at the local church, tables 1, 2, and 3. Here's the thing, folks, while it's a dull-sounding topic, it's very important because how the church reports its statistics, specifically Table 2, will determine how your apportionments are allocated to your individual church. So if there are errors on the Table 2 report that don't get identified and don't get caught by either your personnel at your church or the district statistician or the conference statistician, Darius Baker, or by us in the treasurer's office or the IT office, and sometimes we don't catch errors, it can have a rather profound effect on your apportionments for 2018. So get very comfortable with what's in this section and be aware of it that statistical reporting, while it's a dull topic, it is a very, very important topic, so please pay attention to that. We have in this package of information, and it's on our website also, we'll show you the website a little bit later, a summary of our insurance billings, insurance and pension billing for the local church. And so be aware of that. It's again on the website, but it's also written here. W-2 information. It's that time of year, folks. So pages 46 through 54 talk about W-2 preparation, and it shows we have some examples of how they're to be completed. Many churches and the conference utilizes a payroll service, and those payroll services actually will complete the W-2s for you. For those churches that don't have that as an option, the Conference Treasurer's Office, Bruce Cooper and I, will assist you in completing your W-2. We actually have a tool on our website that you can plug some information in, and it will tell you what numbers go in which box on the W-2. Please be aware that clergy must receive a W-2 form, not a 1099. It's been that way for many, many years, so just be very clear that a W-2 is what's acceptable for a clergy person. The other thing to be aware of is that we get a lot of questions about, should I issue a 1099 for a lay person or should I issue a W-2 for a lay person? There's information in this package that I showed you earlier that will assist you in making that decision, whether a 1099 is appropriate or whether a W-2 is appropriate. It also, the decision has ramifications from a tax standpoint. Be very aware of that and be very careful when making that decision about 1099 or W-2. And there are examples that I can help walk you through on a personal basis. If you have questions about that, you're free to call me or email me and we can talk about that. All right, another exciting topic, miscellaneous tax issues beyond the W-2 and 1099. Sometimes the church will be contacted by a foundation or other organization, and they'll say, we would like to donate money or give you a grant, or you apply for a grant, and the agency that responds says, well, that's fine, but we don't see your church's name in the Internal Revenue Service database as an approved 501c3 organization. The reason for that is that United Methodist churches are covered under a United Methodist denominational group ruling. And most of the time, the group ruling information will suffice with a foundation or other organization that's looking for quote-unquote proof that you're tax exempt. So, in this package and on our website, there is an application that you can fill out online. It takes about 5 minutes, and once you hit the submit button, and within that 24-hour period, you will receive a letter from the General Counsel on Finance and Administration, along with a copy of the group exemption number letter from the Internal Revenue Service that you are then free to provide to the agency that is asking for proof of your tax-exempt status. That's in this section as well. Also, unrelated business income tax, UBIT. There are times when the church will engage in activities that will generate income that is not income from church activities. It may be rent, it may be some other type of activity that the church is generating income from, and depending on what type of income is generated, that might trigger the need to pay taxes on that specific revenue. It's unrelated business income. It's a big topic. Has a lot of exceptions to the general rules. This is one that I would tell you to be aware of. It could include cell phone tower rental, for example. It could include renting your parking lot. There are a number of different, there's too many to name. So there's a number of potential scenarios. When something like this comes up, be aware that you may be entering the world of unrelated business income tax. And if you think you are, give me a call, give Bruce Cooper a call, our controller, and we'll try to walk you through that and give you some counsel on it. Okay, this is an important one. I've referred to our website several times, and we're going to go through that here in just a minute. I'm going to give you some screenshots and show you what's available to you. This is the web address. So you log into this, and then administration is the area that you'll want to access. You want to click on it. To the administrative area to get some of these topics and much more in-depth information, again, some of which is in the package that I prepared for you earlier. Here's some contact information I said earlier. Please contact me. You can email me. You can call me. Either one. This is contact information for me. Bruce Cooper's information and Karen Fullerton's information is on the cover page of this package that I'm going to link for you after this film is completed. Okay, so I mentioned earlier in the first portion of this that I'd talk a little bit more in depth about internal controls for safeguarding church assets. So the package, the big reference package, pages 6 through 14, go over the basics of internal control. Included in that is a sample internal control policy. Now I want to be clear about something and don't want to try to imply otherwise. I don't have direct authority over the local church, so I can't provide you with a policy and say you must implement this. My job is to provide counsel and to provide my opinion and to give you information upon which then you can base decisions and give you best practices. So the information in this package, especially with respect to that policy, it is a sample. It is not a mandatory conference-approved policy. Also included in this section is a checklist for the safeguarding of church assets. It's a one-page document, and it covers the most, in my opinion, the most important points about managing the finances and completing certain tasks in such a way that both the assets are safeguarded and regulatory agencies' statutes are complied with, specifically taxing authorities, IRS and the state. Okay, so that's in this package also. But let me boil down internal control to some rather simple principles. One is you don't want one person doing every function within the finance area. So you don't want one person receiving the funds, writing the checks, reconciling the bank statement, producing the financial statements, and presenting those financial statements to the finance committee. Having one person do everything, and by the way, I think our folks obviously are very honest. Most of those folks working for the church do so because they love the church. My bigger fear is not that somebody's going to deliberately do something wrong, but if one person does every function within the finance area, even a mistake can cause that person to be placed under suspicion. It can cause all kinds of heartache for that person and for the church. It is just poor practice to have one person perform every function. And I realize in a perfect world, you'd have a perfect separation of duties with every finance function, but many of our churches are small, don't have a lot of people, may have no employees or a half-time employee, but as best we can, we need to focus on separating duties. That is in that particular sample policy of internal control. As we move from having the perfect world of separation of all duties to probably more realistic where we have one or two people doing virtually everything, the way to help ensure that assets are being safeguarded appropriately, and there's adequate controls in place over disbursements and revenue receipts, is to have very good oversight by the Finance Committee. So that not only means you've got to have a Finance Committee, but it's got to meet, and it's got to review certain components of the church, certain reports of the church, not only the financial statements, but from time to time the bank statement, bank reconciliation, maybe look at some expense reports from time to time to make sure that everything is being done properly, that there are no surprises, that there are no errors that have come up that have not been caught for many, many years. Again, the church is a very sensitive and organic institution, as we know, and so the best thing we can do to provide some safeguards is to provide oversight and help our people by protecting them by looking over the information that's prepared for the Finance Committee. So a policy of trying to separate duties. If you can't separate many duties because of a lack of personnel, robust oversight by the Finance Committee. I'll talk a minute about one of my most unfavorite topics, and one that has caused some of our churches and districts, frankly, some consternation over the years, and that is corporate or church-based credit cards. Be very careful with those. I can't say don't have an institutional credit card. There are good reasons for them sometimes, but they have caused problems. The misuse of those credit cards has caused problems. Many of you have read about it in the press. Some of our state educational institutions, some of our governmental entities, corporate credit cards can be utilized sometimes either deliberately or inadvertently on personal expenses, can cause a real trust issue. So if you choose to have a church-sponsored credit card, I mentioned oversight a minute ago, please make sure that that credit card is part of the robust oversight exercised by the Finance Committee. An audit. The Book of Discipline requires that each church have an audit every year. Okay, how many churches actually do that? I don't know. I know that not every church has an audit every year. And what does audit mean? Well, my CPA friends would tell you and explain that an audit in the classical sense, professional sense, means an independent review by a CPA firm, that generally accepted auditing standards are utilized and apply generally accepted accounting principles to the financial statements that have been prepared by, in this case, the church, and an opinion is rendered from the CPA firm on the financial statements themselves, whether they present fairly the financial condition of the church as of a specific date, or whether they have some exceptions or qualifications in that. That opinion, because it is premised on a lot of work and very specific work by the CPA firm, generally costs a reasonable amount of money. And it's not, again, I use the term reasonable very carefully. It's reasonable. There's some very specific tests performed. An audit is generally not designed to catch fraud or to catch misuse of funds. That's not its basic purpose. That's a different kind of audit and a different kind of review. So is the church required, according to the Book of Discipline, to go and utilize a CPA firm to perform an audit to get an opinion on the financial statements? And the position of the General Counsel on Finance and Administration has been no. And the Book of Discipline is written in such a way that it does not specify that it must be a CPA firm. But it needs to be an independent review of the church's financial transactions so that the membership of the church can get comfort, as I said earlier in the presentation, that the financial assets of the church are being safeguarded, that the transactions are appropriate, expenditures are being managed properly, and receipts are being accounted for properly. That can be done in different ways. The General Counsel on Finance and Administration, and I'm going to use the terms GCF&A from this point forward. If I say it again, it's easier for me to say. GCF&A has prepared what's called a local church audit guide. And that local church audit guide will fulfill for churches that have a budget probably of $500,000 annually or less. It will fulfill the intent of the Book of Discipline with respect to an independent review of the financial transactions of the books of the church, and it can be done by someone other than a CPA. Now, some churches, and I don't know how many, I've heard about this, and I don't know if it's a lot, if it's a few, but I know that there are a few churches at least who have said, okay, let's take our finance chair and treasurer and maybe some other members of the finance committee, and we'll go to this sister church in our district and we'll perform their review, audit, and they'll do the same for us. So you have independents. You have Methodists helping a sister Methodist church perform and fulfill the requirements of the Book of Discipline with respect to an independent review. They help each other. The only amount that it costs is the time of the volunteers. That's one option for you. That's on the website. We'll show you the website here in a few minutes and show you the various links that you can use to access that local church audit guide. But an annual audit is extremely important because it takes a look at an independent look at what's been done with respect to church finances. Again, gives the congregation a sense of comfort that not only are we doing it properly, but it's been verified by an independent body. Very important. All right, one topic that is rather important, and it kind of bridges the Finance Committee and the Staff Parish Relations Committee. The DS, District Superintendent, becomes part of the discussion. Of course, the pastor will, is the housing allowance and the parsonage. There are tax implications both for the housing allowance and for the parsonage. For example, self-employment tax must be paid on the fair rental value of the parsonage and must be paid on the housing allowance. But that's only two of the that's only one of the very rather large number of topics and ramifications within the housing allowance and parsonage you need to be aware of. The package of information includes some information on the housing allowance, and the website that we'll show you a little bit later has questions and answers about the housing allowance. It has some general information about it. Just be aware that we have information on it. I would suggest to you a couple of things. One, don't rely on anybody in the Conference Treasurer's office for specific tax advice. We can't give it to you. We don't have the authority or the legal right to give you specific tax advice to your situation. So that having been said, given that there are some unique circumstances associated with clergy appointment and employment and compensation, I would strongly suggest you find a good CPA who understands clergy taxes to assist you in the preparation of your year-end tax returns. So be aware, housing allowance and parsonage, we have information on the website. There are tax ramifications to it. Please be aware of it. So that's a very fast introduction to some of the major topics that I wanted to go over with you today. I hope it's helpful for you. You've got our contact information. You'll have shortly the link to this package of information. We'll go through the website here in a few minutes and give you a good snapshot of what's in there. I would encourage you to look at the website, especially if you're a treasurer, finance secretary, business administrator, senior pastor, whoever that's engaged in the finances of the church, to become familiar with what's on this website. And again, please call us. That's what we're here for. We work for you, so call us and we'll provide you as good a counsel as we can, the best information we can to help you in your mission. And I appreciate your attention, and I look forward to meeting you all at some point in the future.